Hello, everybody. Please take your seats. We would like to start our keynote. Um, I would like to welcome everybody on our event. I would like to welcome our speakers, first of all. And I would like to thank the Italian government and especially Ms. Roberta Iana for supporting our event. My name is Johnny Dabrowski. I'm a member of EarthDay.org and I'm coordinating Climate Education Coalition at Earth Day. I would like to welcome our speakers. Good, yeah. Okay. Can I continue? All right. So, to make a long story short and to start quickly, this session is to share skills, to share opportunities for this year from many important stakeholders, from climate champions, from people who have experience in climate business and climate diplomacy and climate advocacy. Personally, I'm very happy to see so many of us as youth delegates on a conference like Bonn. I think that because of our totally fresh mindset, the way negotiations go and the way UN process goes in the future, I hope it will be faster and more effective. And I hope that this event could be one of the thousands of bricks that will go into lead up to this breakthrough. And I wish you enjoy our event. I would like each one of the speakers before their keynotes to introduce themselves because they will do that best. And as the first speaker, I would like to invite the President of Climate Science, Michael Buckland, to present you how to effectively lead climate business and how to be a game changer. Michael, the podium is yours.
Hey everyone, thanks Johnny and Earth Day for inviting me, fellow speakers, it's a pleasure. Yeah, so I'm Michael, and we've now started in climate science about 3 years ago, and we provide easy to understand and reliable education to millions of people around the world. And personally, I don't really have a formal background, so the easiest thing that probably describes me as an ecosystem builder, and maybe a slightly of a troublemaker. But beyond this, today I'm quite excited about the topic of game changing because it allows for different types of thinking. And we really, really need this because there is not one solution. So I want to bring the attention to the screen where we have a cube. And playing any type of game it's important to identify why we're playing it for. What is the goal? Now, the goal is omnipresent. It's outside of the cube. It's in there. It's everywhere. It's always around. There's no one way of getting there. And that's really important to understand. And the cube represents the status quo, the things that the ways that we're used to be doing things. And sometimes the way that we do things is too slow. It doesn't work. And at those times, it is time to start thinking outside of the box. So today I want to do two different things. One is inspire everyone to ask more questions. And the second is ask some provocative ones here that hopefully will be thought-provoking. So first off, I think the best way to kick this off is to question, why are we here in the first place? See, all of us are here now in Germany trying to influence. The talking points are going to be spoken in COP, so we can reduce greenhouse gases that are dangerous for us, dangerous for our environment, dangerous for our people around the world and the planet. And we've been doing this for a while. And every year I hear that the UN climate conference has failed us. It hasn't worked. Every year I hear people who are disappointed. And in 5 years of being around the climate space, and I mean this genuinely when I say this, I have never met a person who is fully confident and trusts 1000% that this is the fastest way to solve climate change. I have never met a person who is 1000% confident in the COP process to solve climate change completely. So, to this I ask, why are we investing so much energy here? Should we be investing it in other places? Would there be other solutions outside of the box that could supplement or support the progress faster? See, one thing is important here. I'm not naive. I know that we need governance and better top-down solutions and thinking, more bold action. I mean, this is everything that everyone is saying. But for me, it feels like that everyone accepts the COP process to be the best one we have. And game changing is fundamentally about questioning the notion that things are the way they are because that's how it is. So, next slide. I want to take climate science, for example. So in summer 2019, it was the peak of climate action. The Amazon rainforests were on fire, and then after that, Australia was on fire. And I was at this point involved for about 2 years in climate activism, and I had organized school strikes around the world and in my locality, and 32 countries by then had declared a climate emergency, but I didn't see the impact that it compared to how much effort we were putting out there. And we got millions of people in the streets, but all of that action was concentrated only on one industry or only one sector, politics. Where were the engineers? Where were the artists? Where were the marketers? The only people involved and the only type of climate action that was recognized in the mainstream was around influencing politicians. Furthermore, we had a bigger problem at hand, which is that the people who were playing the game, the players, did not understand the rules of the game. And instead, because of this, we were forced to tolerate endless discussions of if climate change was even real or not. So we, as a group of scientists and communicators, came together and we did something that should have been frankly done a long time ago, which is we explained what is climate change and how to solve it in a simple, practical way, and we had these resources peer-reviewed. And as a result, we got to educate millions of people around the world and help them solve climate change faster and implement the solutions that we already have. But what if we could apply the same thinking to other problems? For example, something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, as I hope many others, because we should think about it, is the AI revolution that's happening at the moment. What happens when agricultural systems, which should be a good thing because we will be able to feed the world, what happens when the agricultural systems become more effective? What happens with all those farmers who are going to be left without a job? Would it be possible to convert them into local wildlife restoration rangers? What about, here's a story from one of our team members back in Australia. He's been in the electricity industry for 10 years. And he says that there are solutions that they can implement already in Brisbane. But the only thing that's holding them behind is policy. What if we could get citizens locally in that district to advocate specifically for the solutions that are being held back and make those demands more concrete? See, next slide. When the game is rigged, or when the game is too slow, we're left with 3 options. One is to change the rules of the game, which everyone in this room is trying, and everyone that has goodwill and genuinely good intentions in the UNFCCC Secretariat and the youth activists that have come here have been trying for so long. But that's the problem, isn't it? It's taking too much time. The second option, which is to revolutionize the game, or stop playing it. Or the third one, which is to invent a better one. And we need a lot more of the third type of thinking. We need a lot more of the creative type of solutions. Now, to finish, next slide. In the end of the day, what climate science is about, and what game changing is about as well, it's about being a part of the solution. And I want to leave everyone with a inspiring thought, or a thought-provoking thought, from one of the people that has a personal impact on me, Rutger Bergman, with his World Bank interventions. And it is that if we believe humans to be evil and selfish, and we believe that we don't have control over the future, and that the future is going to be worse than the present, we're doomed to be the creators of our bad, self-fulfilling prophecy. See, the only way to make the world a better place is to take its possibility seriously. Thanks, everyone. I hope you're left with, and I hope you take from this, the value of asking questions. Don't ever stop asking questions, especially in the places where they are uncomfortable. Dream big and go after it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Now I would like to invite, I would like to invite Mr. Fernando from the COP28 Youth Climate Champion team to give his keynote presentation about mainly the opportunities for youth during the COP28. Just give me a second, I'll open the presentation, okay?
Hello, everyone. While Johnny, you opened the presentation, just show of hands, how many of you have attended a COP before? How many of you have been to COP before? All right. How many of you have been to an SP before? Okay, so we have some newbies in the room. Yeah, so it's pretty important for us to know this data. We actually, I was listening to the last session, and they were talking, how amazing it would be if young people were part of their official party delegations, and that's something a little bit of what I'm going to talk about during my speech. So to introduce myself, I'm Fernando Armendáriz. I'm with the COP28 Youth Climate Champion team, originally from Ecuador, but based in Dubai. Basically, I'm here to tell you a little bit about what we're trying to do related to youth engagement. I don't need to tell you, we know that that young people and children are going to be most affected by climate change in an erratic climate in the future. But yet, they're not really included in climate change negotiation processes, right? We know that they're doing incredible work, that they are leading campaigns, leading actions everywhere. But when it comes time to be part of the negotiation table, often they're not there. Right, and it's incredibly important to create spaces for young people to be meaningfully included. It's not only important for, many of you said that you've been to COP and you've been to SPs, but just being there doesn't mean that you're necessarily influencing what's going on, right? And I think for many of us here that have been to COP or an SP, like how easy is it for you to know exactly where to go or where to be? Like, I think if you can give me also, if you can raise your hand if you think you know exactly what's going on at a COP or an SP, or where to go. Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of room for improvement and a lot of knowledge to be had. Or how many people had to Google what an acronym meant, right? And I see Javanik in the room here, and I know that I've had to Google YAG many times, and congratulations for being, by the way, appointed to it. But yeah, just to tell you a little bit about the Youth Climate Champions. So really recognizing that that young people are at the forefront of so many incredible things, and that they need to be really meaningfully participating in the COP process, not only as part of tokenism, or not only as the fun bunch, the cool pavilion where you take selfies and everything, but how do you really make sure that young people are meaningfully included? And we really the COP presidency said, okay, well, building upon what happened in COP27, and I'm so excited to see Dr. Omnia El-Omrani here. Us really building upon the special youth envoy for COP27. We said, okay, how should we keep this going? And the COP28 presidency said, how about we appoint a youth climate champion who's really gonna rally behind young people and serve as a bridge between UNFCCC, young people, parties, and the COP28 presidency. And the way that Youth Climate Champion is doing this, and it's Her Excellency Shama Al Masroui, who's the Minister of Community Development for the UAE and my boss. The way that Her Excellency is doing this and the team is doing this is through a 4-pillar strategy. And John, if you don't mind switching to the next slide. That we call PAVE because we love our acronyms. Again, hopefully you won't have to Google this one after my presentation today. But it's PAVE, and it stands for the Peace for Participation. As I mentioned, we need to make sure that young people are attending these important conferences. But again, it doesn't only mean getting there, but being in the right spaces. And after talking to a lot of young people throughout the year, we know that participation even starts from where am I going to stay? Am I going to be able to afford a hotel? Am I going to be able to get a visa? So even these things matter. Like, it's not only looking like, okay, young people are making it to a COP, but really, how do you make sure you address all of these concerns? Then we have the A for action. So as I mentioned, we know that young people are doing incredible work around the world, right? We're often inspired every day. You can find some piece of information, some news article about someone who's doing something really incredible. So we really think that we really must highlight the work that young people are doing to inspire other people to carry on climate action and to connect them to resources and people that can really amplify their work. The V for voice, again, we know that there's voices that don't necessarily make it to COP, right? I mean, there's so many people, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about a program that we launched that really was very revealing in terms of how many people are yearning to be heard. And then the E is for education. How do we equip young people with the tools and resources so that by the time they get to the COP, they know where to go, they know what to do, because we know, again, it's not only important for us to be here at the ESPs, it's not only important for us to be at the COP, but really understand where to go and how to make our participation meaningful. So, Johnny, if you don't mind going to the next one. Yeah, so a few of the things that we're doing. So something that we're super, super proud of is the International Youth Climate Delegate Program. So many of you may have seen this. On March 15, we launched this call for applications where we will be funding 100 young people, prioritizing young people coming from SIDS, LDCs, and other minority groups, because we know that often they are the ones that face the most challenging barriers to access COP. So we received over 10,000 applications, so it's very, very evident that people really want to get to the COP. And we sadly are only able to take 100, but we really hope that, given the appetite that young people really have for programs like this, that this is something that can continue in the future. As I mentioned, it's not only important for young people to get there, so we're also working on capacity building initiatives. So as part of this International Youth Climate Delegate Program, young people are going to be going through a quite robust capacity building exercise that we're organizing in partnership with a few institutions. It's going to touch upon substantive information like climate science, how do you understand the specific reports, the specific agreements, negotiation texts, but also how do you negotiate, how do you create multi-party consensus, etc. And we think that that it's not only important for the 100 delegates to go through this, but we're really striving to make all this content publicly available, free to everyone, because again, these type of resources should be for everyone to be able to access. In terms of voices, we have been conducting global consultations all over the world, where we're asking young people, what are the challenges and opportunities for you to access the COP? And to be quite honest, the two things that we heard most of so far is logistics. Again, how do we get accredited? How do we make sure that we can get a visa? and I know that a lot of young people were not able to be here because of visa issues. And then we also know that based on the consultations, we also heard that it's one was a logistics one, and the other one was capacity building. You know, people are really yearning to learn more, to know more, to be able to be part of the conference, the COP, more effectively. And finally, how do we spur action? So we are trying to connect youth to resources. We're really supportive of the LCOIs, the ARCOIs, and the COI, of course. So how do we leverage different partners to support young people that are doing incredible work? So these are, I'm not going to go through each one, but these are some of the initiatives that we are carrying out as the Youth Economy Champion Team under Her Excellency Shamal Masroui. And yeah, I mean, I hope that this was informational. We have an event on Thursday where we're going to talk about a youth stock take, what we consider very important to look at what has been done with youth engagement in the UNFCCC process, and really what's going to be, leading up to COP, what are some items that can be done. So I know that's a lot of information to cover, but feel free to ask any questions either during the panel or after. Happy to connect with everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Fernando. I have a question. Where can we access information about this around 25 opportunities which are on this slides? Is it somewhere on the COP28 website? Is it like accessible so that's when we don't make a photo right now, we have it later?
Yes, of course. Yeah, you can go to our website. You can also follow the different social media platforms, including @Shama, who's the Youth Climate Champion, who's gonna be here. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I would like to invite some help to help me get the video on the screen. So that I know it's 5 p.m. so we can wake some of you up with the promotional video from Earth Day on the cleanup campaign, because we're leading a global cleanup campaign. We've been cleaning around 100 beaches all around the world, so we want to show you how you can join our campaign if you're interested. And also in the end of our meeting, I will show you the link to our open letter to the COP28 presidency regarding climate education, which was already shared with the UAE Ministry of Education, but we would still continue to raise support for it, so you'll be able to access it in the end of our meeting.
People are doing cleanups all around the world. It's about connecting the dots to make those volunteers who are doing the vital work in their community, to make them feel like they are a part of a global movement. The Great Global Cleanup Campaign is a worldwide movement to rid the environment of waste and plastic pollution for good. And we do that through mobilizing a lot of local partners all across the world to do community cleanups.
What draws me to the Great Global Cleanup and EarthDay.org is how much of a sense of community it is, because we're all involved in this and we truly all care.
In time when I'm swimming my 30-mile Guinness World Record, we will have the biggest cleanup happening here in Biscayne Bay.
Without these volunteer cleanups, we would be even more so than we are now drowning in the amount of plastic that is out in the environment.
People often think that they have to be close to a beach to make a difference for the ocean, but all trash will eventually lead to oceans. I always say that it's streets to creeks to rivers to oceans, and that's how trash will eventually lead out. So I think it's important that we clean up in our communities so we can stop that.
The coolest thing is seeing how younger generation is becoming so aware and so smart, and the younger generation even kind of develops the new products, the new technologies, the new movements. And as an ocean ambassador, as a World Cleanup Day ambassador, and Earth Day ambassador, that's the coolest thing to see how the world is evolving and learning about that we can coexist with the earth.
Imagine the impact we would have if every single person picked up a single piece of trash. Not only are cleanups good for the environment, they're also good for the soul. So grab your friends, family, and coworkers and join us this year to create a waste-free world, Earth Day 2023.
So if you would like to have a cleanup at your place and get funding for it from earthday.org, then please approach me after the session. I will connect you with the cleanup director who you could see at our promotional video. And I would like to invite somebody you may know from the previous COP, the COP27 youth delegates, Omnia El Omrani. Who will speak on the youth advocacy. Omnia, your presentation will be on the screen in a few moments. It's actually there already, yes, so I give you the stage.
Okay, can you hear me well?
Yes. Yes,
okay,
yes,
thank
yes.
you so much for having me. And it's a great pleasure to be there. I wish I was with you in person, but I will be there next week. And it's also a pleasure to really share and reflect on my experience as the first youth envoy to a COP presidency after the amazing presentation that Fernando had with the youth climate champion of the COP 2018. This is very important in terms of, I know this is the last session around building the capacity of young people to meaningfully engage in the COP processes. And what I want to, first of all, share in terms of my experience is why is it important to have the voices of young people, not as add-ons, but as at the center of the climate negotiations and the processes at the highest level of decision making, which is happening right now during the SBs. So in the next slide, this year is very important because for the first time, the IPCC report, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the report which is Article 6, that many of you have seen already in the agenda yesterday. And this report is very critical in terms of guiding the negotiators and the countries to implement and to shape their climate commitments and implementation pathways. This report, for the first time, acknowledged this year during its publishing in March that the decisions that our leaders are making right now, and the negotiators and the ministers and so on, is going to directly affect the current and the future generations in terms of the warmer world and temperature that we are going to experience more than any other generations have experienced before. We all know that there's a 1.5 goal that we're working towards, but right now we are at a trajectory of 2.8. So we are way behind and we're still far from the necessary urgent climate action that we need right now more than ever, because as young people, we are going to shoulder and we are currently being affected by the detrimental impacts of climate change on our health and well-being, on our education, as well as our access to healthcare facilities, decent job opportunities, and a stable and secure future that we deserve. And then what does a warmer world mean? What does a 2.8 degrees Celsius actually mean? As you can see in the graph below, this was done by Save the Children last year in the lead up to COP27. And it showed that a child born in 2020 is going to experience 2 to 8 times the rate of extreme weather events that a person who's born in 1960 is going to see. Extreme weather events are ranging from what we're seeing right now, hurricanes, floods, wildfires, as well as drought, which is now affecting children disproportionately. 1 out of 5 children don't have access to the basic drinking water that they need. The photo above, you can see young girls who are struggling to get to go to school, and this has been actually predicted by the Malala Fund that by in the next 20 years, if we remain at the same trajectory and of a climate commitment, more than 12 million girls will not get access to the education that they need. And right now, you see in the photos below the high levels of air pollution that young people are experiencing, and 9 out of 10 now are breathing in polluted air. And actions that are leading to air pollution are the same that are leading to the impacts of climate change. So it is an issue that affects our health directly and indirectly, in addition to the mental health of young people who are anxious, worried about the future, but at the same time, they do not see the urgent political action for climate change, nor the integration of their perspectives in the climate crisis. So this is the why. And then in the next slide, as the COP27 presidency, we realized how, and we go to the next page. Okay, thank you. So as the COP27 presidency, and in Egypt in general, we recognize the role of young people in such public and policy-making processes, that it is far from optional, that the voices of young people is not part of the design as well as the facilitation of what the presidency is doing in terms of the facilitation of the negotiations, the organization of the event, and it is an opportunity to center the voices of young climate experts and advocates and at the core of what we are doing as the presidency, but also to urge countries to do the same. And that is why for the first time we created a position of a youth envoy within the team of the presidency to be the direct link between the perspectives, priorities, and the voices of young people into the work of the presidency so that we better integrate and we better guide the integration of youth-led voices in the process. So we started by listening to what young people had, the challenges, but also the solutions and the opportunities that young people see through a series of consultations, starting with Africa Climate Week in New York as well as other virtual platforms with different youth-led organizations and groups to really see how we can better respond to the needs of young people and at the same time find ways that we can work together at the event itself and also have the youth and future generations day really done in co-leadership with young people. And we had Yongo as our main partner who we worked together to do that meaningfully. And one of the things that we also worked on was a commentary that was published right before COP, looking at the diverse bottom-up approaches and human rights-based approaches that young people led over across the world in the lead up to COP, and really setting a precedent and an example of how young people are leading climate action. And then in the next slide. So how did this crystallize and what were the outcomes of our efforts? So first of all, we had the Conference of Youth 417 that had over 1,000 young people coming 3 days before COP. A, to build a capacity and understanding of COP processes. B, is to develop, and this was based on the incredible leadership of Yongo and 5 Egyptian youth-led organizations in terms of collecting the inputs of over 30,000 young people into the Global Youth Statement, which is the demands of young people across all areas related to the process, adaptation, mitigation, loss and damage, as well as climate finance, and other important areas such as human rights, gender, health, and others. But what was very important for us is that we wanted to change the dynamic of simply presenting this global youth statement to the presidency on the last day of COI, but to actually have that discussed during COP in the negotiation. And that is why we organized for the first time the Sharm el-Sheikh Youth Climate Dialogue, where we facilitated 2 roundtable discussions. We brought in young climate experts. We had 1 roundtable on adaptation and loss and damage, a second roundtable on mitigation and just transition. And in these roundtables, we invited the ministers, the negotiators, and the chairs of the country groups to sit with the young people and listen first to the demands of young people, and then discuss together how we can take this forward into the negotiation processes. We had note takers and facilitators that then reported back to the presidency to see how we can integrate these policy asks into the COP outcome decision. And then we also had for the first time the Children and Youth Pavilion, which was an independently youth-led space by the young people for them. And this was only the first step And as Fernando said, it is an opportunity to go beyond that and to find ways of making it a more sustainable institutionalized space for COP and for other environment and governance structures. And what was very important for us is that in the COP outcome decision, we wanted to mandate the next presidency to do the same, but also to accelerate and elevate our efforts and the voices of young people in the process. So that is why in the COP outcome decision, we recognize the appointment of the youth envoy, and then we also recognize the outcomes of the COI 17 and the Global Youth Statement. We also recognize the first Children and Youth Pavilion, and finally, and most importantly, the role of young people and children as well in the negotiation process, but to have young people in the official country delegations going to COP with a party badge, with the capacity to negotiate on behalf of their country and integrate the perspectives of young people into the different processes, work programs, and plans and way forward. One last thing is that we also had the COP27 president interact with the young people because we wanted to have this direct link between the COP president himself and the young climate experts and leaders at COP. We had a bilateral meeting, but we also had the COP president visit the Children and Youth Pavilion and listen from the young people as well, their prioritizations and policy asks. And we also presented the COI 17, the Global Youth Statement, to the UN Secretary General. So in the next step, right, as we look forward towards COP28 with Her Excellency Shaiman Mazrui with the Youth Climate Champion team, as well as it's really very empowering to see the prioritization and the meaningful integration of voices of young people at a very early stage. And it's important to recognize that after COP27, there are still many opportunities that we as young leaders need to acknowledge and need to work towards. We know that youth-led bottom-up approaches and policy asks remain to an extent siloed from top-down negotiations because still there's so much dialogue that needs to happen between the ministers, the negotiators, and the country and the chairs of the country groups in the negotiating rooms and the young leaders who are outside. And it's important to think of structures such as the Youth Envoy, the Youth Climate Champion, but also youth councils and other spaces so that young people are sustainably included and not as add-ons, but as natural stakeholders that are regularly consulted in terms of the evaluation, the implementation, and even the very design of the climate commitments and plans that are being developed. And it is important because, again, we are shouldering the impacts of climate change. We are very much capable of accelerating effective, equitable, and just climate action. And we are also working at the front line with the most effective communities and groups. And we have the capability, the credibility to integrate their voices, their expertise, and their perspectives that are often missed in policy spaces. And as we take stock right now of the Paris Agreement for the first time, it is important that intergenerational equity is reflected in the outcome and across all the elements of the global stock take. And this recognition of the cost of climate action on us as the younger generation, as well as the co-benefits of climate action, would really play an integral role in driving the inclusivity, the transparency for countries, for member states to really deliver for and with young people. So thank you so much, and I look forward to any of your questions.
Thank you so much, Omnia. I would like to, before I invite our next speaker, I would like to ask you if you have any questions to our previous speakers regarding COP28, regarding opportunities this year, because I think that after our last keynote might not have time for questions. So if you have, please ask them right now, okay? Please.
Thank you so much to our speakers for their contributions to today's event. And I have a question for Dr. Omnia. Hi, Omnia. Thank you so much for all of your hard work last year as the Youth Envoy. And of course, it's also about compromise at the end of the day when it comes to outcomes and working with the presidency and the calls to action provided by the youth constituencies. So I was wondering what you thought would be your goals, like your biggest dream, to see outcomes related to meaningful youth engagement and the COP28 outcomes? And what were your difficulties as a youth envoy within the COP presidency process?
Perfect. Do I take the floor, or are there any other questions?
Yeah, if you could answer shortly.
Okay,
Okay,
briefly.
briefly.
Yes.
Okay. In terms of my, there's an echo, sorry. In terms of my biggest dream, I think is happening right now, because now there's a youth climate champion, and it's important to find ways that this is an institutionalized role, and within any presidency, but also within any country delegation that is going to a climate event, whether it's COP, SDs, or any other key general assemblies that are related to climate change. There are young delegates that are negotiating on behalf of their countries, and at the same time, really seeing that meaningful follow-up. So once young people are there, are part of the delegation, then seeing that transfer into the country level, because this is one of the challenges that I faced and I saw, is that how can countries at the national level uptake the policy asks and the work and the outcomes that we deliver at the end of a global event like COP, for example. So really building that narrative, building that importance of having young people not as tokens and not as a tick box, but as experts in their field, and providing and being equal partners to the discussions, but also to the implementation and evaluation, and really work with us in that together. So I hope this answers both questions, and very lovely to see you. And I had an amazing meeting with the UK delegation, so happy to see you here as well.
Thank you so much, Omnia. And I would like to invite our last speaker, Ms. Veronica Ngundu Yakarasi, who is Head of Climate Finance at AECF and a climate diplomat.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies. Good afternoon. As already introduced, my name is Veronica Gundu Chakarasi. I'm the Head of Climate Finance at the Africa Enterprise Challenge Fund. We are focused on supporting sub-Saharan Africa in financing renewable energy and agribusiness value chains within the small and growing enterprises. So today I've been asked to talk about effective climate diplomacy, and I think it's a subject that I love, and also talking to the youth. I want to applaud the Africa Group of Negotiators, because they've brought about 10 negotiators, both to address the gender equality aspect, so in terms of promoting more women into the negotiations, and also to make sure that we have young negotiators also getting into the formal process. So I think that was a good initiative. And then in terms of the previous speaker, I think she highlighted an issue on the global stock take. And just this morning, we had a global stock take session, and my friend texted me and was like, "Are we negotiating ourselves to extinction?" And I'm like, it's because of the absence of ambition in the room. So I think as the youth, you have the homework to make sure that COP28 really brings a very ambitious outcome in the global stocktake that will call for more effort and support for implementation and climate action, both at the public level as well as the non-state actors. So have this next slide. So for you to be an effective climate negotiator and diplomat, what does it take? It takes you to demystify all that. People always think that climate is a lot of abbreviations and a lot of these big words. So if you don't understand basic elements of climate change, because in the health sector there is mitigation, but the way they use mitigation in the health sector is different from the way they use mitigation in the climate change space. So for you to be able to be an effective climate diplomat is to really understand what does it entail when you talk of climate change, but across the board in terms of the issues that are around climate financing, the issues that are around climate adaptation. What does loss and damage mean from a climate change perspective? So those are the real critical elements that when you are able to have knowledge, then you can effectively advocate for the things that you want are engaged in, including the issue of intergenerational equity. We are simply talking about equity, but where's the intergenerational aspect? So to me, that is a really go-getter, and it's when you understand what it entails that you are able to advocate and really lobby for it. So what are the key elements that can create the competences and skills in allowing you to be an effective engager? I think the first of all, you need to have the communication skills. Why are they important? Because they provide you with the ability to effectively communicate the agency and importance of addressing climate change to a wide range of audiences. So you're looking at your non-state actors, the private sector. You're also looking at your civil society. What is their role? How do they advocate policymakers to be more ambitious, to be more responsible? And that is also when you're able to grow yourself into understanding how you can communicate the issues around the climate change space. And then also the ability to listen. Why is it important to listen? Because it gives you the notion on when to effectively respond as well, and also to engage in dialogues that provide outcomes. The thing about advocacy, you realize that you are simply lobbying and advocating, but you may not really either get the outcome that you are looking for, or you can get the outcome that you are looking for. So you are able to listen to the policymaker, and then you are saying, I think they missed me here, so how do I intervene next so that we can be on in the same level? So that is the importance of then creating the ability to listen and also to build the needed consensus. I remember when I was lobbying for climate finance in the country, and I went to the Ministry of Finance, and they're like, no, Veronica, this is an environmental issue. So then for you to really convince them that it's an environmental issue, but it has to do with the economic development of the country. So you now also have to then understand the finance language, that when you speak to them, they're like, whoa, okay. So then leadership skills, ability to inspire and motivate others, build coalitions and partnerships. And I think with the youth, especially in this room, like what you did last year, we saw a lot of partnerships and effective coalitions that you really developed. And I think the previous speaker has alluded to some of the successful outcomes as a result of that. So you really need to have the leadership skills for you to effectively engage and build yourself to be an effective climate diplomat. The knowledge of climate science and policy. I like the colleague who spoke first, where he indicated how academic papers are so reliable, but they are not very effective, in communicating the information, and how science is both reliable and effective, because then everybody can follow through, but at the same time how blogs are so easy to read and exciting to read, but they're not as reliable as you would want them to be. So that is a really exciting narrative, and it really goes back to the knowledge of climate science and policy, and why you should ground yourself in that, because the moment you understand the climate policy landscape and also the scientific landscape where you're building your narrative, then you're able to effectively engage and effectively mobilize the outcomes that you're looking for, including resource mobilization, because you cannot go and mobilize resources for loss and damage without even understanding what loss and damage is. So one of my action points will actually be around mobilizing resources for loss and damage. And then in terms of the partnership building skills, which help to build and maintain partnerships and collaborations across stakeholders and leverage resources and negotiate and even resolve conflicts. When it comes to not understanding the process. At the end of the day, the moment you miss a certain element, it actually can distort the entire engagement. At some point, I had a colleague that they were actually pulled out of the negotiating process by their diplomatic office, the foreign office, because they missed, a process. So you come and question a chair why they are sitting there. Yes, they've been officially nominated, but because when they were nominated, you were not there. So it really got very uncomfortable. So you want to understand the processes. You want to have a partnership building skill to really create the necessary engagement elements and also to resolve the conflicts anytime when they arise. And then the strategic thinking and planning. I really like this because it really helps you to prioritize your goals and develop your action plans. And this is what the Youth Envoy has already alluded to, in terms of this is our go-getter and these are action items and this is how we're going to communicate them. So it really brings you to the fore and you're above board in terms of your target issues and what you really want to achieve. And the reason why strategic thinking and critical thinking is very important. You don't look at the surface, you look at the end goal. So as a negotiator, it's not about what did they say. So you listen attentively, then you strategize, where do I get my leverage? And then that is the point of leverage that you pinpoint and you use the process to really get what you're looking for. Oh, I'm still going. I thought that was my last slide. So I'll not go all over them, but just to emphasize, innovation and creativity is also around your strategic and critical thinking, but also to develop technologies, business models, and policy solutions. And the role of social media, where are we mobilizing, where are we getting the vibe? How do we use social media and innovation to really get what we want? And what type of innovative technologies can we really accelerate to get the climate momentum that we are looking for? The cultural and diversity competences. We come from different places and our values are different, but how do I understand their culture so that I win them and they also get to understand where I'm coming from and how do they get to rally behind my priorities? I remember when I was talking to the United States at some point and we're saying you guys are not giving enough financing and you keep on demanding data, and the gentleman was like, you know what, Veronica, when we go to our national government to lobby for development finance and climate finance, they begin to ask, has it worked? How has it worked? And then the more they demonstrate that it is working, it is improving lives, it is reducing vulnerability, then they commit more. But when they come to me, then they tell me how many people benefit. I'm like, come on, this is too much. So it's that level of diversity and competences, ethical, gender diversity, and geographical diversities that really help you to also effectively engage. And then, of course, the management skills and the use of technologies to mobilize and support your mandate and to be able to effectively engage. So in terms of the private sector, the entities, as well as the civil society, and to advocate for the things that you are looking for, even from the policymakers as well. So in terms of the to-do activity, I think where you will be effective for us is to say, how can we accelerate just energy transition and mobilize resources into the loss and damage fund? And why did I put the dollar signs there? It was because I wanted to share a story with you. I read an article which said there's an oil company that generated 61 billion in profits and it paid 19 billion in dividends. And I was saying if they could dedicate just 5 billion of their dividend into, or even 10 billion of their profit into the loss and damage fund, that would be a good start, and it will then motivate other non-state actors as well as public governments to be more ambitious into putting the funds in the loss and damage fund. So to me, those are the real critical issues that you may want to start lobbying for. As parties, sometimes we don't have control over non-state actors, but as the youth, you're not limited, so you can go for it. And then in terms of advocating for more private sector players, climate justice and philanthropic partners to also support your climate justice initiative. Other than that, thank you very much.
So I would like to thank all our speakers. Congratulations for your information, for the opportunities you have shared. I just want to make a quick summary. So from climate science, I would like to encourage all of you to take part in the Climate Olympiad. If you are an entrepreneur, a future scientist, that's one of the biggest worldwide competitions for climate solutions. I would like to invite you to join Youth Climate Champion activities at COP28, which you can find at COP28 website. I would like to invite you to join Conference of Youth, and that's from Omnia's remarks. And based on Ms. Veronica's remarks, I would say focus on loss and damage, and maybe in the future become a climate negotiator. But to be honest, what is the biggest highlight for me is an approach to the policymakers and negotiators. Actually, it's crucial to listen and then give your answer or suggestion in the right moment, because if you don't, then you lose it all. So let's keep that in mind. I would like to thank you all for participation, especially in this afternoon hours. I would like to thank very much the Italian government, and especially Ms. Roberta Iana, for supporting our event. Thank you very much. And I would like to thank the UNFCCC as well. And once again to our speakers, see you all at COP28 and this and the next week in the in the SB58 hub. And if you would like to join Earth Day activities like Climate Education Coalition or Global Cleanup, then I would like to invite you to approach me after the session. And now I would like to pass to Ms. Roberta Iana.
Okay, now just very quickly to thank you for organizing this session in this day of the Youth4 Capacity program. Thank you all for coming, for staying until this late hour. And it's the first time that here in Bonn we organize this Youth4 Capacity program space for young people, and you are already making it already very effective. Because it's growing and becoming a place where to have your voice heard, and even more than in the future in the negotiations room, but also a place to meet and network and work together towards COP28, get to know all the different activities, initiatives, programs that are being delivered all over the world, including the Youth for Climate one, which also will be having an event in October this year, and then participate at COP and work in collaboration also with the COP presidency to make it a very successful COP for youth. Thank you all for being here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Roberta, and I wish you a productive 2 weeks and a very good evening. Thank you all very much.